Good morning and welcome to AM Joy, coming to you live from Los Angeles. Well, Donald Trump was up early this morning doing what he enjoys doing most, rage tweeting. The allegations by Trump's itchy Twitter fingers are serious. He's now accusing President Barack Obama of wiretapping his phones during the campaign. NBC News reports that there is currently no evidence to back up those claims. In one of the 6 tweets that he fired off at around 6:30 this morning, that's 3 a.m. Pacific time, Trump wrote, "Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism!" Exclamation point. How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during this very sacred election process? This is Nixon, Watergate, bad or sick guy. Trump has also tried to redirect the fallout his attorney general's meetings with the Russian ambassador during the campaign created. He tweeted, "The first meeting Jeff Sessions had with the Russian ambassador was set up by the Obama administration under education program for 100 ambassadors. And just out, the same Russian ambassador that met Jeff Sessions visited the White House 22 times and 4 times last year alone." Distracting tweets aside, political fallout continues over Sessions' misleading answers to the Senate Judiciary Committee about his meetings with the top Russian diplomat in Washington. Sessions said this week that he would recuse himself from any potential investigations into the Trump campaign's relationship with Russia, but Republicans on the committee rejected Democrats' attempts to bring Sessions back to testify under oath. Sessions will instead submit new written testimony. The number of Trump advisors who had questionable contacts with Russia is now up to 5, directly contradicting multiple statements by the White House and the campaign that there was no such contact. And joining me now is Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell of California, who serves on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Naveed Jamali, former intelligence operative and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy, Malcolm Nance, Executive Director of the Terror Asymmetrics Project and author of The Plot to Hack America, and David Jones of David Corn. His name isn't David Jones. His name is David Corn. I'm going to go with Congressman Swalwell first, because I just want to clear up for people who may not know. Do presidents themselves order wiretapping?
No, actually, protections were put in place to keep just exactly what Donald Trump would want to do, which would probably have the authority to order wiretapping. So, no, this comes from the Department of Justice. They work with the FBI, and it is signed off by a judge. And typically, a president wouldn't even be read in until the investigation was complete. And so this looks like a diversionary tactic, more Trump-Russia ties followed by Trump-Russia lies.
And Congressman, you know, you're a congressman. You know that information because I presume when you came into Congress, you didn't know everything about the way the government runs, but you availed yourself of information to find out.
I asked questions of people, of the experts.
Does it disturb you a little bit that the President of the United States doesn't know that the President of the United States doesn't order wiretaps?
It bothers me, but I'm not surprised that 30 minutes later he was tweeting about The Apprentice.
He did tweet about Arnold. We're going to get to that too. There's because you're laughing, I have to turn to you because it is sort of funny, but it is sort of disturbing as well. Donald Trump got up really early this morning to retweet what appears to be conspiracy theories that he may have gotten from Breitbart.com. There's a Breitbart story that reflects this same idea. And Robert Costa, who writes for the Washington Post, tweeted out about 8:30 this morning per an official. I've confirmed several people at the White House are circulating this Breitbart story. And it's a story that is titled Mark Levin, who I believe is the same radio host, Mark Levin, Mark Levin to Congress, investigate Obama's silent coup versus Trump. Barack Obama's not president of the United States. How could he have a coup against Donald Trump?
I don't even know how to respond to this. This is so crazy that, I mean, all I can say, Joy, is we have to keep our eye on the Russian question. That's it. The rest of it is just distractions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to that point, Malcolm, let's talk a little bit about the Russia question. You now have at least 5 members of the Trump campaign at the time. J.D. Gordon, I'm sorry, at least 5 members of the Trump campaign that we know of, that were talking with the Russian ambassador, and it includes now Jeff Sessions, who at the time was a surrogate for the campaign and who's now Attorney General, but who's now recused himself. In your view, what does all of this mean?
Well, you know, all of this goes back to the fundamental question which has not been answered, which there appears to be a lot of dissimulation going on in order not to answer this question. Why? Why were these people in communication with Moscow or the representatives of Moscow at all? And it can only come down to one of two things, because they're clearly not just innocent, right? I mean, these were not part of their everyday duties. They seem to have a vested interest in a line of communication with Moscow. And in my world, that only comes down to one of two things: money or espionage. And let's take espionage off the table right now. We know that there's a lot of money here. They believe that Moscow is this giant font of cash. But if I could just touch for a moment, Joy, on the question of the wiretapping. I've been involved in a lot of very advanced collection operations in my world. I have no idea what Donald Trump is talking about with wiretapping. We do not even do that the way he probably thinks from The Sopranos, where we're actually running a wire and putting bugs into his office. This is very dangerous, because the people who would be tasked in justice, if there are any questions coming from the White House starting today, or any time in the foreseeable future, in how they actually do collections, it means that they're preparing for a cover-up, because they want to know how they're actually getting this information. This is what happens when a target starts getting buggy because he knows that he's caught.
And David Corn, to that very point, you had J.D. Gordon now telling CNN that he did indeed participate in changing the platform at the Republican National Committee to be softer on this idea of Crimea and Russia. You have Carter Page, who's been dissembling wildly, some kind of dance he's been performing with our own Chris Hayes and on CNN about whether or not he talked to the Russian ambassador. You have Jefferson Sessions, who it now appears used campaign money to travel to talk to Washington, the ambassador, not in his role as a senator, but apparently with the campaign. Jared Kushner talking with the Russians, and of course we know about Michael Flynn's long relationship with Kislyak, the ambassador. What does this add up to you? You've been investigating this for a long time. What does it add up to you, David?
I mean, the real question here, I mean, you can get to possibilities of active collusion, but the real question is, from June on, it was reported in the media that the Russians had hacked into the DNC and had hacked into the election, into the campaign. From August on, Trump himself and Michael Flynn were briefed that the intelligence community had come to that conclusion. In September, Clapper says publicly he believes it's the Russians. In October, the government puts out an official statement saying it's the Russians. So if any point in that time frame you have anyone from the Trump campaign talking to the Russians, and A, they're not telling them to cut it out, or B, they're telling them, hey, you'll get a better deal with us, that means they are encouraging the Russians to continue with this assault upon American democracy. That is, in my mind, game, set, match. If they knew the Russians were messing around in our election, and they were doing anything to encourage it, forget about telling them not to, then they are guilty by association, at least. And it can get up even, more, damaging than that. And that's what I think they're running scared of. And Donald Trump, I mean, he made the argument this morning that we need a full accounting, a public accounting of what intelligence collection was being done on him and what they found out. And as President of the United States, he has access to that. Every White House reporter should be demanding today at the White House, he should be calling everybody in the press office, well, what's the proof for this? Donald Trump can have it as president.
And to come to you on this really quickly, we believe that there were FISA investigations on at least some of these people already going on. Presumably Donald Trump would know that. He
could find out quite easily. He just has to ask.
Yeah, he just has to ask.
And he can tell us. He can declassify any piece of information in the government. He has that power.
And even if there were, in theory, wiretaps on Trump Tower, which him disclosing that makes it sound as if there was something nefarious going on in Trump Tower and he's letting it go. But if it were, he would have access to that information.
Absolutely. Look, again, Joy, look, we know the Trump platform, which has been very pro-Russia. We suspect, I think with a high degree of confidence, that there are financial ties to Russia. The only question is in the middle. What was the actual substance of those discussions with the Russians? Was there collusion? Was there, a quid pro quo? That is the part that we need to have an answer for.
Yeah.
And I think that, look, The good news is we know that those conversations were recorded. So there will be an answer to that.
Right.
And we just, as the American public, we need an answer to that.
And Congressman Swalwell, I want to come to you on this because this does become an issue for Congress. I mean, I think a lot of Americans have been perplexed by your colleagues across the aisle, seeming unwillingness to address this issue in the committees. They were very vigorous when it was Hillary Clinton. Talking about somebody who was a former member of Congress with you, Jefferson Sessions. In July 18, this is the quick timeline, he speaks with Ambassador Kislyak at a Heritage Foundation event. In September, Sessions has then a private meeting with Kislyak. Now, by this time, Harry Reid, the former Senate Minority Leader, had already sent a letter to the FBI, to Jim Comey, saying something is really wrong here on August 27th. He'd already done that. And in September, you already had Carter Page resign. You already had Manafort resign. So they knew there was hacking going on. But he has this private meeting, which he doesn't remember. Then on January 10th, he's questioned on Russia during confirmation hearings, lies about it. He recuses himself on March 2nd. Will Congress ever investigate this?
We have to. And so Elijah Cummings and I have the bill that calls for an independent commission to get to the bottom of what happened, which American persons, if any, were involved, and what we can do to make sure this never happens again. We have one Republican who's signed on board, Walter Jones, and he was the first one that spoke out against the Iraq War. So he's a man who can put country over party. We just need a lot more if this is going to go anywhere.
And that's the thing, Malcolm, is that you don't have a desire. I mean, you had Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, get up and definitively say to cameras on the record that they have no proof that any American was involved in talking with the Russians about hacking. He made that definitive statement, and he committed himself to it. So what are the chances that his colleagues in Congress are going to investigate? One of his deputies, Kevin McCarthy, went on Morning Joe, says that there should be recusal, and walked it back.
Well, they should be very, very careful about exactly what they said in the past and what they're calling for now. There may not have been any proof that was in his hands at that time. And coming to that point, I want to touch again back on this claim about the wiretap. The President of the United States is the ultimate authority. He is commander-in-chief. But if he was the target, they do have the right to withhold information from him. He does not have a need to know on a counterintelligence investigation if he is actually suspected of doing activities. And the people who would be doing this, it would be a very close hold thing, maybe 1, 2, 3 people in the United States government. But, you know, he is acting this morning like that information is real, which means he's confirming everything that we suspect. And by running around and tweeting about it, that he's afraid of it, he knows something's going on, and he's trying to project a frame of reference around information that he suspects is coming out. If he thinks his phones were tapped, then he believes we know everything. And this is a dance that is very dangerous. I think this is a historic moment by learning this information this morning.
David Corn, if you could get one question into that White House briefing that they do every day that doesn't necessarily give a lot of answers, what do you think the question is that the media should be asking right now?
I think the question is today, does the president have proof that he was wiretapped? I mean, that's the phrase he used. Or is he just, you know, peddling stuff he reads in Breitbart? You know, he has to be held to account. I mean, it is a very serious charge. I think it's completely unfounded, but he, you know, and tell us, direct the FBI to tell us, or the acting AG, you know, the deputy AG, to tell us, were there FISA warrants issued? Who were they issued on? What was gathered on them? So, I mean, these are very simple questions. And I also want to know what Mike Flynn was doing talking with the Russian ambassador before the election. Yeah. We still don't have answers to that.
And I think a very important point we made, and I think Malcolm just made it, is that he would know all of this information. He's President of the United States. He can get all of it unless he's the target. Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. Naveed Jamali, Malcolm Nance, and David Corn. Thank you, guys.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.